Hey guys, welcome to another session on Oracle Source Suite Policy. So today we will learn a new concept in Oracle Source Suite called human task. Okay, and human task is one of the very common scenarios in many projects because there might be many situations where you require a human approval, okay, or you require a human intervention in general. Like a simple example would be when you file an expense report or when you file a leave request, like it automatically goes to your manager and he has to approve it in order to continue the process, right? So that's one of the very simple examples where you require a human intervention. So now straight away we look at what is the concept first of all, what Oracle Source Suite provides, okay, and then we will do an expense reporting example today. So we'll do an end-to-end expense reporting system wherein a person will first create a request and then it goes to his manager, next it goes to the finance department, and finally it invokes another service. So let's see what is human task. So implementing human task. So first of all, business processes often require human interventions within the process, and even a human activity in SOA is to be implemented as a web service. So we understood, right? Like literally each and every interaction in SOA has to be exposed as a service, and we have actually, I mean, web service is one of the majorly used services which follows all the SOA principles. So every activity in Oracle SOA Suite is exposed as a web service. So if you think like how can a human activity expose as a web service, that's where Oracle SOA Suite comes into picture. So it literally encapsulates all the logic from you. The only thing that we have to do is worry about the business logic, and how it is handled internally is all taken care by SOA Suite. Human task service component in Oracle SOA Suite lets you model interactions with people as services. Okay, so this component can be used to model various activities like assignment, reassignment. So let's see what each and everything is. So what is a task assignment? Suppose you file an expense report, then it goes to your manager, right? So basically the expense report is assigned to your manager. Okay, and let's say your manager is busy. So instead of reviewing your whole expense report and all the medical bills, and all the bills within, oh, am I not sharing? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so anyways, we haven't covered much. So let me continue. So we are at this point wherein we are talking about different things that human task provides. So the first thing is assignment. So what assignment is when you file an expense report, it gets assigned to your manager, right? So that's what is assignment. And then reassignment is, let's say your manager is busy, so he doesn't have time to go through all the attachments, all the bills, okay? So he might reassign it, though it is assigned to him directly by the system, he can reassign it to one of his subordinates. That's what is reassignments. And routing. Okay, routing is basically uh, how your expense report goes. Okay, so first it has to go to your manager, and when he approves, it will go to your finance department, and then it has to uh, call or maybe after your finance department, it has to go to another department. So basically, the way in which the approval flow goes through. Okay, so that's basically routing. And escalations. So suppose you create a leave request, okay, but but for a week or so your manager wantedly like is not acting on the task. Okay, so maybe the system will have to escalate if the manager doesn't act on a particular thing. Okay, so we can even do such escalations or model such escalations. And notification is basically notifications using either email or SMS or phones, etc. Anything. And then deadlines. So each task would have a deadline, right? Let's say a service ticket. Whenever a service ticket is created, like it would have a deadline, like say every P1 service ticket has to be resolved in 3 working days. Okay, so even those things we can model it, and many more. What are the different workflow concepts? Okay. So when I say workflow, actually human tasks or human workflow or workflow, all these terms are used interchangeably. Okay, so each and every term remains means the same. It is just the human task. Okay, so what are the various concepts you have in a human task workflow? The first one is called a task. Okay, so this is the basic unit of work. A task represents the work that must be done by a user. So in an expense reporting system, so your manager will act on a task, right? So his task is basically to look at your request and then either approve or reject it. So basically that is called a task. The form on which he would be doing that is basically a task. And participant, as the name implies, every participant assigned to a task or every person assigned to a task is called a participant or whoever acts on it. And then participant type. Okay, so in the same example, in the same expense reporting example, first level is it goes to a manager, right? A manager is a single user. Okay, so one of the types is user, okay, or single approver. And then it goes to your finance department. Now finance department is not a single guy, right? It is basically a group of users. Okay, maybe I'm talking about types of users. Okay, let us look at that first. Okay, so your manager is a single user, whereas your department is a group of users, right? So you can assign a task either to a single user or to a group, or you can even do it at an application role. Now, application role is specific to Fusion middleware. Okay, so it is also a kind of grouping, but not exactly. So group is basically each department would be a group, right? Whereas application role would be at the designation level. Let's say I create application roles at a designation level, like all managers. Okay, across all groups, I can define as an application role within my Fusion middleware. Okay, and assign a task to those application roles. Okay. And now these three users, I mean these three participant types, either a user or a group or an application role, end of the day it goes to either a single human being or multiple human beings, right? So end of the day it goes to a person. Now the assignments can happen in different ways. So let me show you how the assignments can happen. Why is it not showing? Okay. So what are the different participant types? Are single approval, meaning that your manager is a single approval. The moment he does it, it goes to the next level. Or it can even be parallel. So when a participant type is parallel is, suppose you're doing a voting system. Okay, so you have like 100 people and all the people would act parallelly, right? Even if not at the same time, they would be, I mean, everyone gets the question and he has to give his opinion parallelly. So that's a parallel participant type. And serial participant type is one after the other. Say your manager, then your director, then your CEO. Okay, so basically it's a serial type. And then FIA. FIA, as the name implies, it is just a for your information participant type. Okay, you might have some scenarios wherein you just wanted to send a notification to a person. Okay, for suppose, let's say in your expense reporting system, whenever the amount is greater than 20,000, like you wanted to send a notification to your director. Maybe you need not have your approval, you need not have the approval of the director, but the moment the manager approves it, there has to be a notification to your director. Okay, because the amount is very huge, and just to make sure that your director is aware of such huge amounts. Okay, so such type of participants is called FIA participant. So basically he doesn't have to do anything, but it is just a for your information kind. Okay, and we have seen what are the types of users. And then task assignment. So basically task is nothing but a unit of work, right? So your manager has to act on a task, and that task is basically act on approve or reject expense reporting system. So that is a task. So task assignment is basically you are assigning people to a particular work. Okay, so task can be assigned either statically by directly assigning the name, okay, to a user. This is not use, this is user. Okay, a task can be directly assigned to a user, like you can directly specify a name, okay, or you can even do it dynamically. Okay, so the names are derived dynamically, so we will look at both these, then you will understand what it is. Like if you specify a name, if you say this task is assigned to Ravi Kiran, then whatever it is, it will always be assigned to me, right? Whereas dynamically means, let's say it has to go to your manager. Okay, so you will assign the task to something called get manager of creator. Okay, so if the creator is you, it will go to your manager. If the creator is me, it will go to my manager. So basically that user, whoever the task is getting assigned to, is derived dynamically. And the participant perform tasks using Oracle BPM Worklist application. Okay, so like your manager has to approve the task, like he has to log into some UI, right? Some portal he has to log in. Maybe in most of the companies, you would have your own portal like self-service applications or EBS application, whatever it is. Each company would have its own PRM, it could be a PeopleSoft application or it could be the company's own custom application, whatever it is. There has to be a UI, right? So that UI is BPM Worklist application. Okay, so by default, Oracle SOA Suite gives you an application called BPM Worklist application, which is a web app. Okay, which is a web application which lets you do things like lets you perform all the actions like approve or reject or whatever it is. Okay, but I mean, this is a default application, so it might not cater to all your requirements because each company would have its own requirements. Hence, you can even build your custom worklist applications. Okay, let's say you don't like the BPM layout, or BPM is based on ADF. You don't like ADF for some reason because it is heavyweight. So you can even build your own uh, worklist applications, okay, using the standard API. Because all the information would be there in the MDS. All you need to do is build your own, say, web app using JSP and servlets, and then you just get all the information from the database and do it. As simple as that. And what are the different things that you have in a workflow? Obviously, routing. The name itself tells you. It's basically the flow of message. Okay. And ad hoc routing is also possible where the participant can reassign the task at runtime. Okay. Now, initially, in our expense reporting system, like we define the route wherein it first goes to manager, then it has to go to finance department and so on. Okay. Now, if your manager is not free, like he can reassign the task to some other person, right? So suddenly the flow has changed. So it has gone to your manager, next some other person, and after that it goes to the finance department. So that's basically ad hoc routing, which is kind of, it happens at runtime. Okay, it depends on your participants. And task deadlines, each task would have, you can even define deadlines for tasks like reminders, escalations, expirations or renewal, etc. You'll have task forms. Task form is actually the web application on which you'll be working. I told you earlier, right? It would be either a BPM worklist application or your custom worklist applications, like we will build it now. And then task forms can be custom built using the standard API. And then stages. Stages, like it doesn't have any functional meaning. It is just like grouping things, like how a sequence groups activities within your BPL process. Similarly, stages will group participants within your human task. Okay, so that's all about the concept of human tasks. Okay, so let's straight away jump into the topic. So all my servers are ready. Okay, so what is the example that we are going to do today? So we will do this example, expense reporting system, which every one of you might have been aware. So there is this guy. Okay, he creates an expense report. Okay, so basically not expense report, expense request. Okay, So he files an expense request. In our case, like let's do it using the web service endpoint, okay? And then it goes to your manager. So let's say this box represents your manager, okay? And once your manager has two options, he can either approve or reject, okay? So when he rejects, like we will end the process. If he approves, now here, just to make it little complicated, we'll do some few things like uh, if the amount is greater than 20,000, like we'll spool into two branches. Like if the amount is greater than 20k, okay, and then less than 20k, okay. So if the amount is greater than 20k, maybe I want a second level approval from the finance department, okay, because it's like a huge amount. I want even finance department approval also. They wanted to go through the attachments and then do it. Okay. If the amount is less than 20k, like I can skip this one. Okay. So after this, maybe I just want to invoke a banking service. Actually, what happens is it invokes a banking service which will basically credit your money. But in our case, since we don't have any banking service, maybe what we'll do is we can actually write it to a file. Okay. So you can write it to a file, or maybe you can just get the response also. It doesn't matter. Okay. So all it matters is basically the one in between this. So we will build this application now, see how it goes. Okay. So what is the input that we will take? So every SOA application requires a schema, right? Because you are submitting a request, so it has a type. So let's say our request has two things. One is amount and then reason for that amount, okay, and maybe another field called creator, okay. Actually, in real world scenarios, you wouldn't have this field called creator because you would be logging into some system, right? So the login service itself will get your name, but since we are not building any web applications for login services, like let's give the creator name itself, so that whoever is a creator here, it will this task will be assigned to this creators manager dynamically. Okay, so if I give my name, it goes to my manager. If I give your name, it has to go to your manager, and then it goes to the finance department. Anyways, finance department is not dynamic, right? It is a set of people, standard set of people, right? So let us build this schema, and then the output that we will look at here is the final amount approved. Okay. Why I'm saying final amount approved is, let's say you log a request for 30,000, your manager sees bills only for 25,000, so he can actually edit the amount to 25,000 and then approve it. Okay. If there is a limit, like you can change your things and then say comments. Okay. What each and every guy gave you in the course of your application. So I have already created the schema. Okay, so this is the request which has a creator name, amount, and reason, and then the request outcome is amount approved and then comments. Okay, comments are basically an array because in this case, like we have two levels. Where is it? Oh, okay, I did not, I painted through this GoToMeeting. Okay, whatever. So we had two things, right? Let me quickly do it here. So we have this person who logs request, okay, and then it goes to your manager, and then your manager can approve or reject. In the approve, it is two cases again: greater than 20, less than 20. If it is less than 20, I'm okay. If it is greater than 20, I want to send it to the loan department. Sorry, what is this? Finance department. Okay, and then I wanted to finish it off. Maybe I can write it a while, or I'll just finish it off. Okay, and even these guys also can either approve or reject, right? So if they reject, we'll end the process. Okay, so we'll build this. Okay, so now see why the comment is array, because you can have comments by your manager, by your finance department, and so on, right? That's why I kept it as user comment in the array. Okay. So now, if you look at the components here, there is something called human task. Okay. So when you drag and drop, you can always create a SOAP service, meaning you can create a service here through which you can talk to the human task. But usually you never expose your human task directly. You would usually use it within a BPEL process, because human task in isolation doesn't do any process as such. Okay, so it's basically an end-to-end thing in which you have so many humans involved, right? So let me check my email. Why did the other guys didn't join? Because yesterday we had a different URL, right? So let me check quickly. Okay, so maybe no one is attending today. Okay, not a problem. So, so the first thing, what I was telling you, okay, human task never exists in isolation. You can really model it, but it usually doesn't happen. It will always be a part of your BPEL process. Okay, so maybe I would say this as expense reporting BPEL, and it always has to be asynchronous. It cannot be synchronous because there are humans involved and humans take time to do things, right? A day or two. If it's synchronous process, like it has to be done within your timer. Okay? And then I make it expose as service. So my input I've already defined, and then the output. Okay. So here in this case, what am I doing is, instead of writing to a file, I'm just getting the response and we'll look at the response. You can actually write it to a file as an example, as a sample. Okay. So this is pretty straightforward inside this. Okay. Now just let's keep it aside and concentrate on the human task. So let me drag and drop the human task and let's call it as expense reporting task. Okay. Let's say expense reporting. Okay, I would say HT. HT is human task. Okay. I don't want to expose it as a service, but rather I want to use it within BPEL. Okay, so I'm not checking this and I say okay. Okay, it will create me an empty template. Now I have to define all these rules, like first a manager has to come, and then the manager is dynamic assignment of the creator, and then the greater than 20, less than 20, all these things have to do it. So how you do? You just have to double click on this. Now this is the empty template provided by Oracle Server Suite. So you can do whatever you want. What is the title? Our title is expense reporting system. Okay, and then description you can write whatever. And what are the outcomes? Meaning, what are the outcomes for each and every human task? Approve and reject, right? You can have any outcome. Maybe you can say sometimes instead of approve and reject, yes and no would make more sense. So you have all the options here. Of or if you want your own thing, then you can even define your own process. Let's say I say something. Okay, if I want this as an action item, I can even give this and it comes to it. Okay, but for now I'm interested in accept and reject, and I say okay. Okay, and there is this option called actions requiring comment, which means when I say reject, I and when I click this option okay, then what it does is whenever I click on reject and submit, it will ask me for action. Okay, so let us do this. So if I reject and just say approve, it doesn't let me go through. Like I have to provide comments. What is the default outcome? Like if it goes over the deadline, what is the default outcome you want? Maybe I will say reject, because default should never be accept, right? Okay. And then you have priority. Like what is a priority? Usually your resignation request would have highest priority, and your the expense reports are like least priority, and so on. Okay, and now coming to the data part. Data represents what is the data that you wanted. So in our expense report, I'm looking at this data, right? Amount, reason, and then okay, first of all let's add the data. I say add other parameter, and then from the element, it's an element type, not type. So when you're, where is it? This one, right? Expense report request, and say okay. Okay. And now there is a small checkbox here saying editable via work list. Okay. Now what this option is, if I don't click on this option, what happens is, like, this guy gives amount as 10,000 and submits a request. Okay. So if the manager feels like he should get only 8,000, if I don't make this editable here, like, the manager won't have an option to edit any field. Okay. So in this case, like, we wanted to edit, right? So we make it editable via worklist and say okay. So data section, I'm good. And now coming to the assignment, the major part. Okay. So this is where you will define your routing. Okay. So the basic holder for anything is the stage. Okay. So stage is like a sequence or a scope. Okay. You know what it is, basically grouping things. So you just drag and drop a single participant inside this. Okay. Double click on this. You can name it as manager. Okay. So basically we are modeling this one. Okay. So I have created it as a see, when I click on this, is it a single, parallel, serial, or FIA? It's a single user, right? So I say single. When it is voting, I will say parallel. It's a single one here. And then who is the participant? So I need to add the participant. Now this guy is a user, not a group. Okay. What is the manager name? Now here I cannot hard code the manager name because this is a generic application for the entire company, right? Each person will have his own manager. Even your manager would have another manager, right? So it's not a static name, but rather it is a dynamic. So I would say expression and click on this, and I would say go to identity functions. There is something called get manager. Okay. So get manager of whom? Get manager of the creator. So this is your creator name in the input. So click on the task. Inside the task, there is something called payload and then creator name. Okay. So what happens is, basically it will get the creator name from the input and then it assigns to its manager. Okay. So creator's manager and then say okay. Okay. So we are good. Stage 1 is done. Okay. Now what happens in this stage 1? There are two options now. Like, this guy can either approve or reject, right? Approve or reject. When it rejects, like, we are okay. But if it approves, what should happen? When you approve, it has to go to the finance department, right? So let us model this one now, finance department. So what I do is, let me erase everything. What I do is add another stage. Okay. Actually, you can put the participant within here only, like the single participant within here only. Okay, but I don't want to do that. Like, I want to have clear separation because manager and finance department are two separate entities. Okay, I double click on this and I would say finance department. Okay, now what is a finance department? Finance department is not a user, it is a group, right? And by name, I would say finance department. Okay, and then okay, finish it off. And is there anything missing? Yes. Here you will call the finance department only when your amount is greater than 20, right? If it is less than 20, you want to skip the finance department. So where do you do that logic? You will be doing that logic somewhere here, right? After manager, but before finance department. So how you do it is, when you double click on the finance department, you can go to the advanced tab here and there is a specified skip route. Okay. So when you want to skip the finance department, when the amount is less than 20, you want to skip, right? So you click on this and then in your payload, when the amount is less than 20,000, you want to skip your finance department. Okay. So though you don't see if else conditions like BPEL here, it is within this one. Okay. And say okay. And then you are done. Like, you have done this, you have modeled this, and then you have modeled this. Okay. So basically we have modeled whatever is within this big box. Okay. So the other parts you need to model later, but this is what we have modeled within the human task, right? Because these are the only ones which have humans within it. All the others are just web services. Okay, so any questions still here? Okay.
Ravi, I didn't understand the rejection part actually. Where does the rejection part happens?
Okay, rejection part you don't see here, but when I drag and drop into the BigPail, you'll see them. But here inbuilt, like when what happens within it is, let's say this guy approves or rejects, right? If he rejects it, like it doesn't go to the next one, it stops your human task and goes back. Okay, so when I do the BPEL, you'll get the answer. Okay, just in a couple of minutes, you'll get the answer. Any other questions? Okay, so when it approves, it follows these arrows. Okay, and then now presentation is if you have different, like the resource bundles, you can do it. Like if you have different, like if you are in Europe, like each country has its own language, right? So, and then deadlines. This is where you give the deadlines. Like you want to expire after 3 days or maybe after expiration, like or you can do the deadlines here. And after the deadline, like what you want to do. Even that function, if it's so complex, like you can put it in a Java function and call it. And then notifications. This is one more part used very much. Okay, like for each and every task that you do here, you will need a notification, right? See, a manager will never, he won't have time to always go to the portal and refresh it, right? So whenever you log a request, your manager should automatically get an email. So by that email, he will come to know that someone has requested. So at each and every point, there should be a notification, correct? So you configure the notification here. Like whenever a task status is assigned, what you wanted to send, like what is the header. So header, I can say task so and so requests your attention, please respond or something. Okay. And then similarly, when the task is complete, what you want to do. When the task errors of what you want to do, so and so. Okay. Access is who should have access. And events is like, let's say whenever your manager uh, gets a request, like you want to fire some other process. Okay, let's say there is some other audit process which you wanted to fire whenever your manager approves over 20,000. Okay, so after this approval, you wanted to fire an event, and then your another audit process will basically subscribe to that event, and then all the audit work will be done there. Okay, so that is completely independent from your expense reporting system, right? That is where you use events. Okay. And then documents is you have any attachments, you can do it, you can attach it, and then all the documents usually you put it in a content server, and Oracle has enterprise content management, and you can directly have links to the content management from here. Okay, and then the attachments, how you do, I'll let you know in a moment. Okay, so we are done with the human task. We just did the small box here. This box we have implemented. So what we will do is we will use that within our BPEL process. Okay, so how do you call a human task within a BPEL process? Like you wire it, and then inside your BPEL you have the partner link. So I can have an invoke activity and then wire it and then assign the input, assign the output. Okay, so after I wire, the output would be either approve or reject, right? So all those things are like complicated, not like simple uh, web service call. Okay, so I don't want to do all that stuff. I will let Oracle SOAS will do it for me. Okay, so I won't wire it like a normal service. Okay, why I'm not wiring is because human task does much requires so many assignments. I'll show you in a moment. So instead of wiring, what I will do is I'll go inside the BPEL. In the SOA component section here, you have something called human task, right? You just drag and drop here. Okay, double click on that. You select the human task that you have created. Okay, so within your BPEL process, like this human task will point to expense report HT that we have created, and what is the input. Input is in your input variable, right? So this is my input variable. Okay. Request is my input, and I say okay. Okay. See, now automatically what it has added, see, like it had given the input, okay, input of the human task, and then it has called the human task, okay, and human task is asynchronous, so you have a callback operation, and then we have approve and reject, right? So here it is, like you have asked, right, what happens in reject case, like after the outcome, like if your manager has rejected, then it comes here and then it goes to this block, okay, or if your finance department has rejected, like it comes here and then it goes to this block. So this is where you handle it, okay. So this answers your question, Shankar. This is where you handle it. And since you have given outcomes as only approve, reject, they are here. Like if you have given your outcomes as approve, reject, okay, no, and so on, like for each outcome there would be a block, and within that you'll have the assignment. Okay. So that is why I have used this option of dragging and dropping the human task. See, I have to create all this, and there is a good chance that I might miss so many things, right? So that is the reason I have asked JDeveloper to do it instead of me. Okay. So what happens now? So I will just minimize it. Okay. So what happens is your BPL process starts, and then your human task is called. Okay, within your human task, basically you have that routing rule wherein you have your manager and then if else condition. Okay, in if condition you have loan department and then finish it off. Okay, so the whole thing is basically within this. At any point when you reject, it comes back. Okay, and then reject goes here, approve goes here, and so on. Okay, now your manager, like within this whole process, your manager might have changed your amount, right, and put some comments, or finance department might have changed the amount and put some comments. So where are they available? They would be available. So when you click on this approve, okay, if you look at the assignment, it says task payload of type any type is assigned to the input variable only. Okay, so what's happening is you are actually assigning the input variable as input to your human task, and after that, after everything is done, your human task is actually getting that processed variable, again assigning it to your input variable. Okay, so input variable at this point and input variable at this point are completely different. Let's say I give 1000 as the amount and reason as say HQ visit. Your manager would have made it 800. So your input variable at this point would be 800 and HQ visit. Okay. Why they have assigned two input variable instead of output? Because for human task, only one variable, I mean, we are just dealing with only one variable, right, in human task, only this variable. So that is the reason it is reassigned to the same type. Okay. Output variable is output and input are something related to your BPEL process, not your human task. It might be a little confusing, but you just try to do it. You will understand. Okay. So most of the thing is done. Like we have to do very little things. So what should happen after you approve? Like ideally, I want after this step, I want to call a banking service, right, to deposit the amount. But in our case, like we'll just assign it to the output. Okay. So in either rejection or acceptance case, what we want to do is like I will drag and drop an XLT transformation, maybe inside your approve. Okay. So I would say transform underscore approve, or I can actually do it after this. Whether approve or reject, I wanted to give the output, right? What are the input variables? Input variable is your task payload, okay, and then your input variable. This is the processed input variable. Say okay, and what is the output variable is your output variable. And then I would say transform underscore say h2 outcome and say okay. Okay. Now let me minimize the task payload first. So this input variable represents the processed one, right? So after all the edits, the amount is the final amount approved. Okay, I'm done. I have assigned. Okay. Now what about the user comments? Okay. So in my input there are no comments. Okay, but the your manager and your finance department would have added the comments, right? So they would be in this payload called the task payload. Okay. Every human task has this complicated payload which has literally everything. Like if you want the attachments, yes, they are here. If you want the comments, they are here. If you want the task, who created it or who edited it, like literally all the information that is that happens in a task will be there here. We are concentrated on user comments, right? So just click on this. So here there are two participants. One is your manager, the other one is your finance department. So this guy repeats twice. So that is the reason I have an array here. So I would say for each. So for each user comment in the payload, what I want to do, I want to assign the comment. Okay, and then I finish it off. Any questions here? So this task payload is something completely new to you right now. Okay, so every human task has like so many things like attachments, comments, and then metadata, so many things apart from your actual payload, which tells you what is the amount, what is the reason, etc. Okay, so all that is captured in this, and this is created by default whenever you use a human task. Okay, so all the information relating to the human task will be here. So that is the reason I have added this, and then I've done the basic mapping. So done. Okay, so whether it is approved, whether it is rejected, or whatever it is, even else also they just did it, but else won't be. If it is approved, reject, or let's say maybe is the third option, it goes to inside this. After everything is done, I've made the transformation and it comes to my Beeple output. Okay, so I am done. Let me deploy this. Okay. Okay, so while it is deploying, now we have to do one other task. So here we are talking about users, right? Like your manager, like people from the finance department. So all these are nothing but users in your WebLogic or users in your LDAP. Each company would have its own LDAP. LDAP is nothing but a collection of users and groups. Okay, users, groups, roles, everything. So like you have two options. One is go to WebLogic console. Go to your WebLogic console. Go to security reams and then my ream. So this is where you have all the users. Okay, click on users groups. This is where you have all the users. Now I have so many users, but you would have only two users like admin and WebLogic. Okay, so you have to create all the users and then create the user manager links between them, create the groups, everything you have to do in order to work with this, because if if the creator is Ravi, like you need to have another person called Srikanth who is his manager, right? So you have to create two users, establish the link, and then create like 5 users in the loan department, finance department, and then associate the link. You have to do everything, right? So instead of like doing all that stuff, Oracle has given something called demo user community. Okay, so this is the community that Oracle has given. Okay, so it has given an ER file. You just have to install it and then seed all the community so that all these users are created and all the link is established. Okay, so the way you do it is, I'll give you a jar file today along with the video. So what you do is very simple. So this is the jar file that I will give you. What you do is, there is an EAR file here, right? So it's very simple. Go to your WebLogic, go to deployments, click on install, and then select this EAR file. Okay, so I'll give my uh, folder structure here and just say enter, and you can select the EAR file, say next and finish, so that the EAR gets deployed. I've already done it, so I don't want to do it again. Once you do that, just go to the readme file, okay, and scroll down till you see this one, okay, till you see this section to seed community, means to create the community. What you have to do, like HTTP localhost, so this one you just copy. After you install, when you open this URL, my host is localhost 7003, and remember, when you are doing this, you will do it, you will deploy it to your SOA server, which is a managed server. Okay, like I will show you. And I say next, next, and here I will select the SOA server, not the admin server. Okay, once you do that, you will open this application in your admin server, in your managed server. Okay, and just say seed community. Okay, and when you submit it, it will create all the users. Okay, in this fashion. So what it means is, when you say creator is W Shake, his manager is R Steven, and this guy's manager is J Stein, his manager is W Fox. Everything is established, and you also have groups, like these are the various groups that are there, and these are the users within the group, etc. Okay, so all the prerequisites are already available, so let's not waste time in creating users and all, which is all admin stuff. Okay, don't worry about it. So just see this user community. I've shown you how to do it. Install it, and then open that web app, do a seed community. What happens is, you have all these users and groups created. Okay, now let's concentrate on our application. So open your enterprise manager, open your Drupal process. Why is it taking so long? Okay, so let me go to my composite, expense reporting service. Okay, click on test, and then let us create the payload. Okay, so amount, let's say it is 21,000, and reason is, say, HQ visit is the reason why I'm expensing $21,000 or rupees, whatever. And what is a creator name? See, I actually told you, creator name wouldn't be asked in real applications, because you would be logging into a URL and do it, right? So the logging service will have the information. But since we are using EM, we don't have the login information, so let's do it. And what is the user that we will create? Let's look at the demo user community again. We'll select one user, whatever it is. Let's select this guy, W Shake. Okay, so that his manager is R Steven. And I will say here W Shake is a creator. So what it means is, W Shake is creating a request for $21,000. Okay, and say best web service. Okay, and if you look at the launch flow trace, you will see that it went into your BPEL, and then it went into your human task, and in your human task it is waiting. Okay, and if you see here, it is waiting on R Steven. Okay, now who is R Steven? R Steven is basically your W Shake, who is the creator's manager. Now how it has derived? Because we said get manager of the creator, right? So get manager of WShake would return R Steven. So your LDAP identity service would return the value, and it is assigned to this guy. Okay. Now this guy has to log into some portal to approve the application, right? I told you initially during our presentation that participants perform tasks using Oracle BPM Worklist application, right? So there is this application called BPM Worklist. Just like your enterprise manager, there is an application called BPM Worklist. Okay. So the URL is your manage server /integration/worklist app. Like you can do it on your screen also, like it comes up. Okay. So this is the default worklist application which is used to work with all the human tasks. Okay. So it is assigned to your manager who is R Steven. So let us log in using R Steven and see if the welcome one is the default password and see if the expense report is there here or not. Okay. So here it is. What is the title that I have given? If you remember, expense reporting system. So search with this and you will find it is there. Okay. And it is created 7:22, which is 10:22. This is EST. Sorry, this is PS specific time, but whatever it is. So it is created. Okay. And R Steven is your manager. So basically, I'm a manager. I logged into my portal. I've seen the expense report. And when I click on actions, I can say approve or reject. Okay. Now here I see only approve option. But if you remember, I have created approve and reject, right? That's one thing. And where is the payload? Like I said, it is 21,000. And then I said HQ visit. Where are all those details? Like at this point, I'm not able to see those details. Wait for a couple of minutes. I'll show you how to see those details. Okay. But for now, like I don't have any details. Okay. But let me approve it and see what happens. So I approve it. Okay. And then it goes off. Let me log out. Next, what happens? Okay. So after I approve, it goes to this guy, right? Finance department. And when I go into the definition, it says assigned to a group called finance department. But did I create the group finance department? No, unfortunately, that group is not there in this demo user community. So instead for now, we will assume loan analytic group as a finance department group. So let me just override it and redeploy. Or you can actually create a finance department group, assign few users, and then log in, whatever it is. Okay. So let me redo it. Expense reporting service, test, say 22,000 this time. Sorry, this is what? You can use any user. Use another phone. Let's say I use WShake. So 22,000. And say HQ visit or any reason you want. Okay, I say test web service. Okay, done. Now let me log it through R Steven, who is the manager, and see. Okay, I got it. Let me approve it. Okay. Now what happens? This guy goes to the finance department. Finance department is basically this group. Okay. So look at the demo user community. Okay, this group, who are the users? Okay, these three are the users. So I can log in with any of the three users. Let me log in through using this guy, fkaka, and then password is welcome1. Here it is. So it got approved, it came to my desk, and then okay. Now here I don't see any option called approve or reject, but instead I see something called claim. Now what is this claim? See here, in this case, it is assigned to a group, right? There are 4 people in the group, okay? And let's say for reviewing this application, it takes me 20 minutes, okay? So I come to office, I open my portal and I see this and I started working on that, okay? So after 10 minutes, let's assume another guy in the same group came to office, he has opened his portal. It will also be there in his inbox also, right? And he will start working on that. So basically, 2 guys are working on the same task, which is not good because it's duplicated. And then both guys, I may approve it, he may reject it, which is unambiguous. So instead, you have something called claim, which means that the moment one person claims it, like the others cannot act on that. Okay. So here we have logged using fkaka, and then I can see this, right? Let me show you. Let us log in using another user in the same group, Mitch, and see. Here also he is there. Here also you can claim it. Okay, let me claim using Mitch. Okay, I've claimed it. Now I can see approve or reject. Okay. Now let us log out and then log in as fkaka and see if the claim option is still there. See, claim option is not there, which means this guy will understand that, okay, some other guy has already started working on that, so he'll go to the next request. Okay, so that's how it works. So let me go back to MH and then let me approve this. Okay, so once I approve it, see what happens. So your human task, initially what happened, R Steven is assigned and he approved it, and then it went to the loan analytic group where I have claimed it, and then MH has approved it. Okay, and once it is approved, it comes back to the BPL process. Okay, and then it does the transformation, and then this is your final output, and the amount approved is 22,000. Okay, so we did only half part now, because nowhere in the screens or nowhere in the BPM worklist application you have seen the payload, right? So how do we see the payload? That is where task forms come into the picture. Okay, so if you have seen this task forms, it is through task forms that humans act on the task. Okay, so like Oracle BPM has given you this BPM worklist application. Okay, but that gives you the basic infrastructure. Okay, your task form may look in any way, right? Each company has its own way of creating or designing the task forms. Okay, so that part is left to you. Like we have to do it ourselves. So how do? We do it using Oracle ADF. Okay, Oracle ADF is application development framework. It is based on the MVC architecture, and then it's a complete web application stuff. We are not concerned about it as a SOA developer, but we need to create the task form to see our payload, approve, reject buttons, etc. Okay, so creating a task form is very easy. You just click on your human task, and there is a button here called auto generate task form. Okay, so just click on this, give a project name. I would say expense report system underscore UI, and say okay. Okay, then it does lot of stuff internally, creates an ADF app for you, and then it creates a page automatically. Sometimes your JDeveloper will hang at this point. So after this example, I'll show you. You have to tune certain parameters, certain JVM parameters. So when you do that, your JDeveloper doesn't hang. I'll show you after this. It takes another 10 minutes for the session to finish. See, it has created so many files. If you look at the application navigator, like everything is auto-generated. You don't have to worry. There would be a separate ADF team working with SOA team. So they will take care of creating the task forms. You don't have to worry. Okay. So let me save all. Okay. So this is the task form that is created. Okay, and if you observe, here it is, creator name, amount and reason. Okay, and then there is a comment section, there is a metadata, etc. So you can just close everything, save all, and deploy this web application. Okay, so go to your application navigator. Don't deploy it from right click option. Since this is a web app, do it from your application level. Say deploy and go to your expense reporting system UI and deploy it to your managed service. Okay, and while deploying, it will ask you for certain information. Let me show you. So just select SOA infra everywhere. That is where your metadata comes from. Sometimes either during the build process or during the deploy process, your JDeveloper might hang. So you have to do certain tuning parameters. I'll show you after a moment. Okay, I guess it is deployed. Done. Okay, so it's deployed now. Let's do the same thing. Like go to your expense report. Expense reporting service. Test. And maybe I'll say 23,000 this time. I'm sorry. Let's watch. What is that? Or let us use another thing. Seed oil. Seed oil. And then amount is 23,000. Say this time it is maybe client visit. I say okay. Now I use seed oil. So seed oil's manager is again R Steven. Okay, so let me log in as R Steven and see. Okay, so I have this report. Earlier, if you observe, like even after I click the report, like nothing came here. It says please select a task, right? But now the moment I click on this, either the task form comes or you may get an error. Okay, so we got an error and it says an established connection was aborted by software in your host machine. Okay, this is a very common error. Okay, because my local host, I mean, I haven't given my computer name as local host. That is the reason it came. It's very easy to troubleshoot. So just go to your EM, click on your composite, and then here in the components, click on your human task. It is also there in my blog. So even if you don't follow this, you can. So click on your composite, go to the human task, go to administration, and here if you see home.attlocal.net is my host name. So make it localhost. Okay, and say apply. Once I apply it, you just refresh this one. Now it should work, or you can actually log out and log in. Okay, maybe better. Okay, it's still under process. Let me log out and log in. That's better. Okay, so I click on my expense report and here it is. So I see the form. Okay, so whatever the ADF form created, I have got it here. And if you see, I can see my request. Okay, amount, reason, everything. And here I see approve and reject. So these are my outcomes, right? By default, I just have only approve, but this is my real form. Okay, and then I can give comments. So let me say this is the comment from R Steven modifying the amount to say 21,500 by 65. Okay, just for fun, I'm just changing it to this. So okay, as a manager, I don't feel 23,000 is appropriate. I make it 21,560 and say approve. Okay. Now it goes to loan analytic group. Who is loan analytic group? One of these three. So I will log in using fkaka. Okay. And then first of all, I will claim. See, before I claim, I don't see any approve widget. Okay. The moment I claim, I will see approve widget. Okay. But as a loan administrator, I even feel like 21,000 is also too much. I say 20,900 as the appropriate thing, and I will say comment. Okay. I would say uh, loan department, or say finance department. Finance department modify to 20,900 because of so and so. Okay. And then I approve it. Okay. So let us see what is the final response. So let me look at the instance. Okay. So it is finally finished. Earlier it was running, right? Finally finished. And if I look at the final response, see, here it is. So amount approved is 20,900, and then these are the user comments. Like user comment 1 is this, user comment 2 is this. Okay. So this is how you work with human tasks. Like however complicated it is, so the only thing that you need to do is basically do the assignments properly. Okay, so you know the business logic, like how it happens. You just have to model them properly. Okay, if you want to do a voting system, how do you do? So you will create a here it is. Okay, you will create a parallel participant type. Okay, and then let me create it here, and then you will add all those users or all those groups. If you add a group name, say loan analytic group, so until all those three users does it, like finally you'll get a result. And then you can say you can skip this when you get more than 50%. Okay, or say 70% is the win percentage. Okay, let's say there are 10 people. If 8 people vote for it, there is no need for the other 2 to vote, right? So you can even specify those things and what is the default outcome, etc. So you can literally play with these things. Okay, only thing is you need to define your task forms. So now you understand what is a work list and what is a task form, right? Work list is the default web application that Oracle Source Suite provides for the basic things. But in order to do your customized things, you need to build your own task forms. And Oracle Source Suite gives you an option directly, a menu option from your human task to create your task forms using ADF technology. Okay. If you want to do it using your own technology like JSP and Servlet, you can still do it. But all that headache of getting all the data from the SOA infra tables, all that you have to take care. Okay. There are tables called task query service within your SOA infra. So task query service literally has all the information for workflows. So you have to get all the data from there and do it in your own web app. But usually, mostly like whenever they use Oracle SOA Suite or Oracle BPM, they use ADF because ADF is like inbuilt within your SOA Suite. Okay, because since both are owned by Oracle, they have given the native I mean, they communicate natively in native language so that it is faster. So that's all for this session. Any questions?
No, Ravi, as of now.
Okay. Yeah, this is like a
Too
talk.
much to digest today.
Exactly. So better you try to do this. Okay, this looks very, I mean, this looks a little confusing, but when you do it, it's very easy. Don't concentrate too much on the UI. Okay, UI maybe once you are more familiar, then you can check this because UI usually it will be done by a separate team, or there would be a ADF dedicated ADF team who does it. So we'll just build the own forms, but I can also show you like if you want to do some things with UI. So I can come here and then say Let's say I don't want to show the creator name. Okay, so I can just come here and then delete this. And then I have only amount reason, so that only these comes up. So you can actually customize this. Okay. Okay. I wanted to show you a more important thing now. I told you, right, whenever you click on this generate form, you get errors. So what you do is you have to go to your JDeveloper folder, okay, JDeveloper, and then or JDeveloper, JDev, bin, and then here you have something called jdev.conf config file. Where is it? Okay. So just open this. Here you have to add certain parameters like this one, like permanent size, max perm size. You have to change it to 512 MB. And another thing is there is another file called ide.config. There also you need to make some changes. So I'll give you that list. Okay, like 2 files you have to modify. I'll give you exact list so that once you do it, your JDeveloper will work little faster. That is the only thing.